Hello, welcome back to another episode of McKill's Deck Chronicles. My name is Kenny Williamson, and today I'm going to be going over, as you can see on the headline there, if you're watching the video, that is, it says, Headline, Hollywood Left Baffled as it's revealed that 94% of children born to American celebrities identify as transgender or non-binary in groundbreaking new study. Okay. So, what do you think about that? 94% of Hollyweird is what we can call it. I call it either Hellywood or Hollyweird. You know, these so-called celebrities that people look up to like little demigods, 94% of their children are trans or non-binary, something other than what they are. I mean, think about that for a second. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that the left and Hollyweird, why do you think that all of their children, 94%, are transgender? They have a mental problem. Okay. Do they? Or is it the parents pushing it on them? Well, you know, a lot of these celebrities, they have little bitty children, you know, that are like, I don't know, 5 years old, whatever. And they're claiming that these children are transgender now. So is it the children? Or is it the parent? As I have a feeling most of these children, you know, if, you know, a normal child, if you were to take a normal child, a little boy, and let's say you start putting him in dresses when he is a baby, and his whole entire life, you've told him that he's not a boy, he's something other than that, and then you put him in a private school because, you know, you're a Hollywood celebrity, so he's in a private school of some kind, and in that school, whoever's doing the teaching is telling this child that they're not a boy, and all the textbooks that are provided show pictures of boys dressed as girls. What do you think they're going to think when they're about 15 years old? You know, they've lived a sheltered Hollywood life because their mommy or daddy is a A-list celebrity. So, you know, what are they going to believe? I'm sure they're going to believe whatever they were taught their whole life, which is, of course, a falsehood and a lie. But can you imagine that? 94% of all of their children are transgender. 94%. That's 9 out of 10. That's 9.5 out of 10. So for every 10 kids, you've got a minimum of 9 that say, well, I'm not a boy, I'm not a girl, I'm whatever. You know, how is that possible? Well, I have a couple theories. On how that's possible. Excuse me. One of the theories I have, and I mean, I say it's a theory, it's pretty obvious what's going on. Okay, these Hollywood actors are devils. Okay, let's get that out right now. Satan is running this world. That's biblical. Okay, Satan is the ruler of this earth, and he is the master of the airwaves. Okay, Beelzebub. He is the master of everything when it comes to that. If you do any studying on Lucifer, he was supposedly head over music, possibly in heaven. He is known to have a harp or a flute or something like that. Music was one of his deals in heaven. So is it any surprise that he is down here in earth, cast out of heaven? Okay, I say he's not in his position anymore. He hasn't physically, I mean, he can come to and fro heaven. That's what the Bible says. That's what it says in Job. So he wasn't cast down, completely cast out yet. That is a future event in Revelation. So he's roaming around right now, but he no longer has his position in heaven. Let's say it like that. And so he has angels that have also left their previous estate. They've left what they were designed to do and what they're doing, and they decided to follow Lucifer. So he's down here. He has his fallen angels with him. He's the head over the earth. He's the ruler. He's the head over the airwaves, master of the air, master of everything down here. So is it any wonder that he uses airwaves, to get his agenda done? When I say airwaves, I mean TV, satellite, any kind of medium that's transmitted over this plane that we live in, okay, that is controlled by the devil. So what the devil has done is he got over there in Hollywood, okay, and what he's done is he's put these people in positions where young people look up to them and they think that they're important. And the reason for that is because they're on television. They're on the news. They're on YouTube, popular, billions of views. They're on every form of social media you can think of. They're on TV constantly. They have concerts all over the world. And these people are put into these positions because for their love of money and their love of self, which is pride. So these people are put in these positions because of their pride and their love of money. And that's how the devil gets his hold on them. And once he has them in this position, then they have to do his will to stay there. Okay, they become reprobate. They have reprobate minds. Their conscience is seared. Okay, so like, for example, if somebody came to me and said, hey, Kenny, how would you like to do this, and promote your podcast on the news, let's say, which is never going to happen. I would say, okay, let's do that. And if they said, now, before you do that, you have to kill a baby. I'd be like, you need to be arrested. You're out of your mind, and you're a devil. Even if they said something like, well, will you take this blood, this baby's blood right here, and kind of smear it on your face tonight and think about it? I'd say, no, I'm not doing that. See, that would be ridiculously over the top because my conscience is not seared. Okay? It's immediately a red flag. But let's say you've been in Hollywood your whole life, like some of these kids that are growing up that way. They're growing up watching their parents do this kind of stuff. They're watching all kinds of bizarre rituals. They're watching, God knows what all they're doing. I mean, we can see what's in the news, like on X, for example. What's supposedly going on over there at Epstein Island. We've got kids of all ages, down to infants, being brutally raped and murdered. Okay? So we're talking, if you haven't heard this stuff, you've got your head under a rock. Okay? You need to pull your head out and look around. Okay? Because this stuff is being reported all over. Some of the stuff was on the laptop. There's been a couple of different laptops. Hunter Biden's laptop, and then there was the other laptop that had a bunch of stuff with the Clintons on there, Hillary Clinton, those guys, they've got videos on there, and if you've never heard of it, you should look into it. It's called Frazzle Drip. If you've got a weak heart or a weak stomach, don't look into it, okay? But supposedly, it's been reported that there was a group of police that confiscated this laptop, and it has to do with Hillary Clinton and some others, and they viewed the videos on this laptop. And supposedly these hardened homicide detectives and other stuff bawled like babies from what they saw. They couldn't believe it. And then, before this could ever come to light or be used as any type of evidence, a majority of the police committed suicide or died unexpectedly. I mean, That's how it always goes, right? I mean, you get your pedophile supposedly, and they put him in jail. And, he's got an island. He's a billionaire. He's connected to all these people. He's supposedly in jail. Nobody knows. And, all of a sudden the cameras all stop working and the guard fell asleep. And when the cameras come back on and the guard wakes up, well, we've got somebody that's hung themselves. They've killed themselves again. Now, nobody saw it. There's no proof of any of it. And then the body just disappears. So, is the person even dead? I doubt it. All of these guys are intertwined like this, okay? That's why nothing ever gets done. It doesn't matter who is in power, if you want to say, what regime is in power. Nothing ever gets actually done because they're all in on it. This the kind of stuff goes all the way to the top. So you can't have these Hollywood actors being arrested for murder because they might reveal who had them do the murdering. And then they would reveal who had them do the murdering. And it just keeps going right on up the ladder. So this is all controlled by Satan. Okay? And so if you don't understand that, I've got some slides here. I'm going to have stuff I'm going to talk about. But you have to understand this transgender stuff, this is not new. Okay, men dressing up as women, do you think that's new? It's not. Okay, they were doing this back in biblical days in Babylonia. Okay, it was a Babylonian process, a Babylonian pagan thing they're doing, but it was in Babylonia. Babylon. It's in Babylon. Okay. It's a Babylonian thing being conducted in Babylon, worshiping false gods. Okay, pagan gods in Babylon. So a couple of these different Babylonian gods that people were worshiping back then, the two biggies, okay, is Moloch. You've got Moloch. You've got Ashtoreth. And there's another one. It's on the top of my head. Either way, there's several of them over there. But Moloch and Baal. I can't talk today apparently. Baal, I guess. Baal, yeah. Baal. So Baal, Moloch, Ashtoreth, and of course you've got Ishtar. But Moloch is one of the main ones, okay? And he goes by different names. So depending on if you were a Canaanite or a this or a that, you're probably worshiping the same God, but he may be called Moloch over here. He may be called Baal. He may be called Baal over here. I mean, who knows? Who knows what they're calling these things? I mean, depending on where you're at, it's got a different name. It's all the same God, okay? It's all the same. Either it's a fallen angel or it's the devil himself, okay? But you're worshiping Satan in the end. That's what you're worshiping. So what we have here is the same thing happening in Hollywood, okay? This transgender stuff with these kids is not new. These actors and actresses are still worshiping Moloch, okay? They are still worshiping Baal. Nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is the outerwear, okay? That's what's changed. So, in other words, back then, they're worshiping this stuff and they're sacrificing their babies. What they would do, okay, is they would go to these worship ceremonies to go worship, okay? And they would have orgies. All kinds of sexual, deviant, disgusting, whatever. And they would do this, and they didn't mind getting pregnant because they had full intentions of sacrificing their child to Moloch or to Baal. And so, as the story goes, they've actually got, different things that were written down back then, history, okay, that says that these people, They have a statue of Moloch, which was made out of brass, okay? And its arms are reached out like this, reaching out, and they build a fire under it, under the hands, okay? And these things get red hot. And they take a live baby, okay, up to how many ever years old, whatever years they want to sacrifice, and they literally lay this baby on those red hot burning hands. That's what they do. That's what they did. Okay. And of course, it hurts, right? So as whoever wrote this down in the history said that the baby, of course, would flinch and scream because they're been laid on a red hot metal surface, and they would then roll off into the fire. And of course, burn alive. So that's what these devils were doing to children. Okay? Literally placing them on a red hot metal surface and watching them cringe and scream in pain and roll into the fire. You know, you've heard the old saying, out of the frying pan into the fire. That's what this is. You go out of the pan into the fire. So which one's worse? Either way, you're dead. You're getting burned up. That's what they did. So that's a thing of the past, though. Hey, we don't do that anymore. No. Now, instead of a brass statue that looks like a cow or whatever Moloch looked like at the time, now we have men dressed up in white coats, medical coats. And, instead of sacrificing your baby on a hot surface, what we do now is we pull them apart. We take a tool and we go in there and we rip their legs off, and then we rip their arms off, and then we take and we crush their skulls. That's what we do now. That's the humane way to sacrifice your baby. Now, I understand there are some people out there that have had abortions. Maybe you're going to get an abortion, and it has nothing to do with Moloch in your mind. You're thinking to yourself, hey, this has to do with my personal this, it has to do with this and that, and, whatever. But the thing is, the problem is the system that's in place to allow you to do this to begin with is a demonic system based on Moloch. Okay? So even if you don't understand it when you're getting this done, you are sacrificing your baby to Moloch, to the devil. That's what you're doing. You're giving it up and allowing them to murder it. And then, and what's come out now, if you've watched the news with Ouchie Fauci, and all that stuff, he came up with human scalps from babies. And they have proof now through his emails and other stuff that he was having these scalps sewn onto mice and making them grow hair, baby's hair, on these rats or whatever. And in order for this to work, these doctors said, the scalp had to be viable. It had to be alive when it was put on there. So in other words, they've taken a baby, they've got a baby somewhere, supposedly from an abortion. Okay? So they've taken a baby out of a mother, it's alive, and they scalp it. Okay? They have to scalp it before they kill it, because the skin needs to be alive. So they cut its skin off and then immediately place it onto a rat. This is the kind of stuff they're doing in the name of science. Okay? So that's just a very small part of it. They figured out a long time ago that these abortion clinics were actually stealing the babies and selling the body parts. Okay, and they found this undercover, and when a guy went undercover and found it all out, of course, he's the one that got arrested and put in prison because he discovered what Planned Parenthood was doing. So just so you know, this has not ended, okay? if you're thinking about doing something like that, just know that you are sacrificing your baby to the devil. And ultimately, when they put you out or whatever they do, you really don't know what they're doing. They could take the baby out and go torture it in the back room by cutting it to pieces and selling its parts. There's a whole lot of things they could be doing. So you might want to think about that. But anyway, so this system has been around for a long time. So these people, these ancient Babylonians, they would do their thing. They would get pregnant. They would take the baby. Of course, they had to, they didn't really have abortion back then, apparently. So they would have the baby, and then they would kill their baby. So what we've got now is the same thing, only they're taking the baby out a little sooner. Of course, if a lot of these states, these liberals, they want you to have the baby to term. They literally want you to have the baby all the way. And then you have so many hours to make up your mind if you want it aborted. Okay, so they're going to lay the baby out on a table and let it sit there and scream and cry while you make up your mind. And then if you say, yeah, I don't want it, they're going to smash its head in and throw it in a trash can. Or they're going to start ripping parts off of it while it's alive, screaming in horrible pain, so they can give the parts to somebody or sell the parts to somebody. That's the sick society that we live in today. So I don't know which was worse, ancient Babylonian junk or it's today. At least they threw the baby in the fire and it was burned up. They're killing, torturing them, and using body parts off of them now. I mean, drinking their blood. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, like I said, if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up frazzle drip. Look up adrenochrome, okay? I mean, a lot of this stuff can't be substantiated. I mean, as far as nobody's ever going to get arrested for it because they're all doing it, okay? And if you don't believe they're doing it, and I mean, I have a bunch of videos I could play for you, and I'll do that eventually. But I have a whole bunch of different celebrities admitting that. Why their skin looks so good and stuff like that is because they're dousing themselves in baby's blood, taking baths in baby's blood, putting baby's blood. So the question is, where do you get baby's blood? Okay. I mean, where do you go get it? You can't get it at Walmart, can you? So if you're a celebrity and you have a bathtub full of baby's blood that you're able to bathe in and brag about it, where are you getting it? You see, is anybody asking any questions like that? Nah. These guys get to do whatever they want. The reason is, I mean, they're devils. They're in a demonic system that's allowing this to happen. So even if they don't kill their children right off the bat, okay, instead of doing that, they ruin their lives by basically sacrificing the kid's life still to Moloch, only by changing their sex. By saying, look what I've got here. I've got a little boy, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to transform them into a little girl. And so now we've got a little girl when we had a little boy, and that's the same thing that these gods did, these pagan gods, these Babylonian gods. It's the same thing they did back then, is the men would dress up like women, the women would dress up like men, and some of these different gods, when they made a statue of them, they would have male and female body parts. Okay, that's what they're promoting back then, and it's still what they're promoting today. They're just doing it with their children now, or themselves. Some of them do it themselves. We've got athletes, who I'm talking about, that was on, they were on cereal boxes, because they were athletes, and now they're trying to convert themselves into women. And they're all in that same area. They're all over there in Hollywood. Not all, but majority of every one of them over there is doing the same thing. So the question that I beg to ask here is, are they doing this because they're required to donate their children to these false gods? I mean, they're either going to have to kill them, sacrifice them that way, or they're going to have to sacrifice them by making them transgender. Either way, it all has to do with these false gods. And, I mean, that's what they're doing. You know, let's see here. Yeah, this was actually supposed to be a podcast about Saturn. Okay, it's supposed to be. But as it turned out, this is becoming a podcast about something completely different. But Saturn is involved in this. Okay, Saturn is a planet, if you will. I mean, I don't believe in planets as NASA describes them. It is a wandering star, okay, as biblical would put it. And you can look up and you can see Saturn. Many people have done it with a Nikon camera, and it is a circle with some kind of rings around it. So that's real. Now, if you look at NASA's pictures, those are fake. Those are CGI. But you can see Saturn with a telescope. Okay, you can see it with a Nikon P1000 or a Nikon P900. You can see it. And you can Google it, and you can see it for yourself. I should have had a picture of it, but I didn't. However, it's there. Saturn has to do with Moloch and these others. These same group of people worshipped Saturn. Okay, so Saturn comes in many different forms as well. And one of the things it comes in is a black cube. And they call it the black cube of Saturn. And so you'll find this black cube, like in different religions have this black cube. Like you find them in synagogues. You find them, Jewish people have these black cubes. Okay. In fact, I have a couple of pictures here. It's actually called, obviously I'm very bad at pronouncing things today. And forgive me, I have had a horrible cold for the last week. Today is the first day I can actually speak clearly. Okay. So I could be mispronouncing things. Yeah. Anyway, so this little black box here, I'm going to show you a picture. Of course, I'm going to see if I can move it over my face. Do you see the black box on the guy's head? Do you see the black box on his arm? Do you see that? I mean, look, it's ridiculous. So these guys are praying, and they have this little black cube on them. Okay, it just so happens, let's get you another one. This is that same cube over in Mecca. You see it? All these people gather around every year. These people make a pilgrimage over here every year to worship that black box. Look at it. They're worshiping it. Okay? They're worshiping a black box. Do you see that? Okay, let's look again. Let me find my deal here. There it is. Now, tell me that's not demonic in some way. That black box equals Saturn. Okay? How it equals Saturn? Okay, I don't know why they came up with a black box that equals Saturn, but it's called the black cube of Saturn. Okay, is that only in Mecca? No. Is it all over in our government and other governments? And they put it right in front of your face? Yeah. Let's look at another one here. Looky here. The black cube of Saturn. They've got one on display there in Australia. They've got one on display in Denmark. Manhattan. Santa Ana. Do you see what we see here? Do you see what you're looking at? If you're listening to audio only, you're looking at big black boxes, cubes. that are on display in front of different government facilities or whatever. Okay, that is the black cube of Saturn. It goes all the way back to Saturn equals Satan. Okay, I mean, it's as simple as that. It's Satan worship. It's demonic. God does not want you worshiping Saturn. Okay? Yeah. So, anyway, so we come up here again, and now this may be a coincidence, but I wanted to show you one of Trump's buildings. Trump Towers. Do you see what that is right there? Okay. If you can't see the picture, it's a black cube on top of the building, and it says Trump Tower on it. The rest of the building isn't black. The rest of the building isn't anything like that. It has a giant black cube sitting on the roof that says Trump Towers on it in white. If you didn't see the picture. Okay. One more time, if you got the video, there it is. Is that a coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences like that, FYI. I don't believe it's coincidence. I believe that if you are a billionaire or a trillionaire, if you're the richest man in the world, however, whatever, you're not going to be that unless you're worshiping the devil, plain and simple. Now, can Christians have wealth? Yes, they can. You know, are Christians shooting rockets into outer space? No. Are Christians supposedly putting giant rockets that look like male appendages into outer space with a bunch of Hollywood actors on board so they can all come back down and tell you how awesome outer space is? No. You have to be in the club, in the devil club, to be doing that. That's why everybody that gets aboard one of these so-called rocket ships to outer space are all part of the Hollywood program. Okay? They're all part of the pedophilia program. They're all the same ones that are going over to Epstein Island. And that's only the ones we know about. I mean, of course, here recently, Diddy got supposedly arrested. Who knows if he really is? But the stuff he's doing over there is just that's what they're all doing. You know, how he got caught or somebody filmed who knows? But it's not just Epstein Island. It's not just over there in California and Diddy. They're all doing this stuff. That's what they do. They get together and they worship the devil. And they do it in the form of their transgender parties. They do it in the form of their orgies they have. They do it in the form of all kinds of stuff. And then there's all kinds of stuff that we don't even know about. I mean, we know that these children are missing. We know that people come forward and say they were a part of this, and they immediately either get killed or commit suicide over and over and over. Nobody's ever going to actually come to trial or get arrested for this because they're all in on it. Okay? You should know that by now. And if you want to be in on it, you have to worship the devil. That's kind of a prerequisite. I mean, now, these guys that are doing this, you know, I can't believe it. I mean, they believe in the devil. They don't act like they believe in God. I mean, maybe you should read up on the Bible. I mean, the devil's in the Bible. You're worshiping the devil. Moloch's in the Bible. You're worshiping Moloch. Baal is in the Bible. You're worshiping Baal. But you don't worship God. Well, the Bible tells you what's going to happen to you. Okay? You get to go to hell. So the life on this earth is very short-lived. And then you get punished. So, I mean, why you would accept the billion for an eternity of fire and brimstone, I don't know. You know, you'd be better off being dirt poor and being saved than being a billionaire and going to hell when you die. You know, if you don't understand that, read the story of Lazarus and the rich man. It tells you exactly what's going to happen. It describes it. Okay? And there's really no getting away from it. So all of these pedophiles and murderers and killers and probably 99.9% of Hollywood, they're all going to be there. Okay? They're all going to be there. Yeah. So, now, how far does this, let me see my time here. How far does this Saturn worship go? Well, let's see here. According to this, it's the black cube in Mecca, which I showed you. It's where the has a different meaning than others. It says the black cube represents the planet Saturn, which we've said. Planet Saturn is known as the worship of Lucifer. Muslims have always worshipped Lucifer in Mecca. So they're worshiping the black cube, which stands for Saturn, which stands for Lucifer, which is Satan. It all goes back to Satan. It doesn't matter if you're worshiping the black cube, if you're worshiping the planet itself, if you're worshiping Moloch, if you're worshiping Baal, if you're killing babies and ripping their heads off, if you're claimed to be a doctor and you're dismantling children, you're worshiping the devil. That's what it boils down to. It's a satanic system, and that's who you're ultimately paying tribute to. Whether you believe it or whether you know it, you're a part of its system. Okay? Now, if you ever get saved, you'll realize that and you'll stop doing it. But might be too late. You know, it's winding down pretty quick, so you don't have a lot of time. Okay? Your time is ticking. Okay, but most of these people, even if they had the chance, they wouldn't change because they're not going to give up their money. They're not going to give up their money and their lavish lifestyle because if they were to stop worshiping the devil and stop doing all this stuff, the other ones would kick them out of the group. So then they would no longer have any of this stuff. And they're not willing to give it up because they want their pride and they want their popularity. They want their money. So they're not going to give it up. They're going to continue on. Hey, that's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead. I know where you're going. Okay? I know exactly where you're going to end up. And that's up to you. It's your choice. So, another thing which I find interesting, and I'll just throw this in here, is if you've seen it, it's called the Star of David. Everybody's seen the Star of David. I'm going to put a picture up of it. However, you see this? Star of David, right? You see what's underneath of it? Star of Remphan. Star of Remphan. Why is that? Well, according to the research I did, the six-pointed star was also the Star of Saturn initially. It's not the Star of David. There is no Star of David in the Bible. Okay? The Star of David in the Bible doesn't exist. So just forget that right now. Oh, that's the Star of David. That means David. Says who? Not the Bible. Okay? So we're filtering here, and we filter everything through the Bible. A King James Bible. The authorized version. If you don't have an authorized King James Bible, you have a perversion, is what you have. But even a perversion, the perverted ones that attack most of what Christianity actually stands for, even in the perverted Bibles, I don't believe there's a Star of David. Okay? They can't even filter that through a perverted piece of trash. So there is no such thing. But let's claim that there is and stick it on people's flags and fly the flag in our front yard. And then when somebody says, hey, what's that star? Oh, that's the Star of David. Really? What's that? Actually, it's Star of Remphan, which equals Saturn. The star of Saturn. Star of Satan. Satan worship. It all goes back to there. In fact, let's see here. Oh, and just the headline here, I've got Ra, which is a sun god in Egypt. Osiris, another false pagan god in Egypt. Moloch, Baal, one called Bel, B-E-L. Kronos, I've heard of Kronos before. Ptah, all are archetypes of Saturn. Okay, they all have to do with Saturn, Saturn worship. Saturn is Lucifer. It's Luciferian worship. It's Satan worship. Okay, there's no way around it. That's what it is. That's what it's always been. It hasn't changed. Just because nobody says it anymore doesn't mean it's changed. They're still doing it. They're just doing it. They're glittering it up. They're putting pride flags above it. They're putting it on TV. They're putting it in children's books. They're having children parade around in this junk. It's still the same thing. Moloch, Saturn worship, devil worship. That's what it is. Okay. Yeah, so we've got here in Acts, in the Bible. So just so you know, I'm not making this up. Okay. Acts 7:43. Yea, ye look up at the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god, Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. Think about what this says. I'm going to break it down for you. Yea, okay, hey, it says, you took up the tabernacle of Moloch. He's telling them this. These heathens. You took up the tabernacle of Moloch. Okay, and the star of your god, their god is Moloch. The star of your god was called Remphan. Remphan is the six-pointed star of David. That's the star represented Moloch. They called the star Remphan. Okay, he goes on to say, figures which you made. God didn't make this stuff. He's talking to these filthy degenerates out here, these filthy sinners that did this. They're the ones that did it, not God. The figures which you made so you could worship them. So you made a statue of Moloch, and you made a star, and you call it Remphan, and this star represents your god, Moloch. You see? So the Star of David doesn't exist. It's not in the Bible. But what we do have in the Bible is the star of Remphan. When you look up that star and research it, guess what it looks like? The Star of David. It's the same star. They made that up. Probably, I believe they made it up, if I remember the story right, when they were in the 40 years wandering in the desert. They made that up and started worshiping it. And that star represented Moloch, who they were worshiping. So they would show somebody the star and say, oh yeah, see, I'm worshiping this. And that star meant Moloch. The same way if you're to look at a cross today and say, oh, that's a beautiful cross, that means Jesus died on the cross. Or I look at your cross and that means you're a Christian. I look at the cross and it represents God the Father in heaven. You see what I mean? Here's my star. Who does it represent? Oh, it represents Moloch. Because we worship Moloch, a pagan, fake, false god. Well, what's that star called? Oh, it's called Remphan. Remphan. But today, see, we don't want to call it that because the Bible calls it out. We run it through the Bible filter. We filter it down, and guess what comes out the bottom? It's pagan. It's filth. Okay? It's demonic. It's Luciferian worship. It's Saturn. Okay? It's Moloch. So we have these flags today that, oh, it's the Star of David and it means this. No, it doesn't. It's the Star of Remphan, and I just told you what it means. So think about that if you think you're going to support, Israel or some other country, and they have a flag they want you to fly that has the Star of David on it. You can trace it all the way back to the Bible, and it has nothing to do with David. It has nothing to do with anything other than Moloch. Okay? And it just so happens these people flying these flags, they believe in Jesus Christ, but they don't believe Jesus Christ came and died on the cross for your sins. They don't believe that. They're still waiting for their Messiah. They're still looking for Messiah. That's why they want to rebuild a temple, so they can start sacrificing again, waiting for their Messiah. And their Messiah is going to show up all right. He sure is. And he's going to take over the temple, and he's going to desecrate it, and he's going to implement the mark of the beast because he's the devil. Just like the Bible tells you. But hey, if you don't believe what the Bible says, then I guess, I don't know. They don't believe it. The same people that are flying the Star of David don't believe in Jesus Christ, that he died on the cross. Okay? They just don't. Either that or they don't understand what's going on. So, yeah. So let's see here. So I've read Acts to you there. Talks about Moloch, talks about the Star of Remphan. It's the same thing. Saturn worship. All goes back to Moloch. Okay, let's see. Yeah. So, of course, they have the moon and the sun. So this is an Apple product thing, maybe other stuff. But I have an iPhone, okay? I looked it up, and it says, have you ever wondered why there's only 2 planet emojis? You have the Earth and you have Saturn, okay? And, of course, the Earth is a globe. So if you do the emoji looking up on an iPhone, you have the Earth, which it shows a globe. Okay, so they're lying to you on that. The other one they've got is they have Saturn on there. They don't have any other planets. Now, they do have the sun and they do have the moon, but they have nothing else. So, and I looked myself and I couldn't find any other planets. So it says, have you ever wondered why there's only 2 planet emojis? Of course, one's Saturn. Have you also ever wondered why most celebrities have tattoos of the planet Saturn on them? And so I looked it up, and sure enough, tons of these celebrities, somewhere on their body, they have a tattoo of the planet Saturn. Now, we know they're not into astronomy, don't we? We know they're not astronomers part-time. So why on earth, out of all the stuff you could have a tattoo of, all of the filth you could have a tattoo of, which they have a lot of that too, do they always include they got a little Saturn on there. Got to have it. Okay. It's because this Saturn stuff is literally in the music, movies, it's on buildings, it's in apps, it's all over the world. Okay? The masses of people are completely clueless to what it means. They have no idea. They see it, they're like, oh, the planet Saturn. They're completely clueless that it means Satan. Okay? That's how they slip this stuff by you. They change it. Okay? So the masses are clueless. However, those that are up here pulling the strings behind the scenes, they are aware of Saturn's worship. They know all about it. Okay? Saturn is the lunar god of the underworld, better known as Satan. That's what they called it back then. Okay. And of course, you've got Moloch connected to this too. A Star of Remphan, all goes back to Saturn, and he is the demon of child sacrifice. So you're either going to sacrifice them in the form of ruining their lives now or kill them. But either way, it's child sacrifice. Now, it just so happens, according to my research here, that, Saturn is supposedly, according to them, the 6th planet from the sun, which I don't believe that anyway, necessarily. at all, because I don't believe in the planets like what they're saying. But they're claiming that it's the sixth planet from the sun. It has a six-sided shape on its north pole, according to Google and NASA. And the sixth day of the week is Saturn Day, Saturday. In case you didn't know it, lots of our days are pagan in nature. The name came from something pagan. So Saturn Day is Saturday. Okay, so that's their Sabbath, which sixth planet, six sides, sixth day of the week. What do we get? 666. So that's what they're teaching. That's what they believe. Anyway, and then of course you've got Kronos. He was one of the gods back then too. He was supposedly a baby eater. So he ate babies. It's funny because I actually saw an old episode of Doctor Who the other day, and from the 70s or 60s, and Doctor Who, one of his evil counterpart called the Master, he actually summoned Kronos, and it's called Kronos the Destroyer. And this Kronos supposedly went and destroyed some stuff, but then, creates, destroys. Who knows what all he did, but he was trying to summon Kronos. Okay, here. Sorry about that. I had a little glitch there for a second, so I had to hit pause. So, anyway, I'm going to try to wrap this thing up here real quick, but Remphan is in the Bible, and I read it. It's in Acts 7, verse 43. And it says, "Yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god, Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them." And basically in that particular scripture, Stephen is rebuking the Israelites for what they've done. Okay, they were at the Sanhedrin. This was before the Sanhedrin. He was physically before the Sanhedrin, giving them this rebuke. So that's what they had done. And they're still doing it, okay? But they had done it, and they got rebuked for it. But I've got an Old Testament parallel here. It's in Amos 5:26, and it says, "But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch and your Chuan, or Chin, I'm not sure how you pronounce this, your images, the star of your God, which ye made yourselves." So once again, they made this themselves. Okay, they invented it. It's kind of like building a statue of a cow and worshiping it, like they've done. They've done that several times. They make a fake god and they worship it. And in this case, they even made a emblem, if you will, to support this god, to show you this god. And it's the Star of Remphan, which happens to be the Star of David. So it says, you've borne your tabernacle of Moloch and Chuan your images. According to the deal that I looked up here, Chuan in Hebrew is believed by many scholars to have the same name as Remphan, just in a different language. So it's saying here, "But you've borne the tabernacle of your Moloch and Remphan in your images." So that name supposedly means Remphan, and Remphan looks exactly like the Star of David. Okay, so yeah. So they've got it. We're in the Greek Old Testament. I don't run to the Greek and the Hebrew on every little thing, because we have a perfect version given to us in English in the King James Version Bible. So there's no need to try to run to Greek or anything, because this particular Greek is a dead language. It's been dead for 1,500 years, and it's already been translated. And if somebody says, "Well, I've got a better translation," they've come up with like 30 translations of this thing, 26 or 30. It's some outrageous number. Every time they do it, they change something. So the original is what I call the good one, okay, the authorized version. But this has something to do with Remphan, Remphan. It's translated several different ways according to what I read, but it means the same thing. Okay. Let's see here. Who or what is Remphan? I'm going to give you a little simple deal here. Who or what is Remphan? We know what the symbol for Remphan is. It's the Star of David. Okay, so many biblical scholars and historians agree that Remphan is a reference to an ancient Semitic god associated with the planet Saturn. Right back to that again. I mean, everything leads back, all paths lead to the same place, apparently. So, let's see. In Babylonian and Assyrian astronomy, the planet Saturn was associated with certain deities, like Moloch, worshipped by neighboring cultures. So, Saturn is associated with multiple different fake gods, pagan gods. Moloch being one of them, Baal being one of them. Okay, the star of Remphan may have been a symbol representing Saturn, and it was likely used in astrological and idolatrous worship. Okay, practices, of course, that were condemned by God. So they used this star as a representation of Saturn, and of course they used it in their idolatrous worship. So I don't know if they had it tattooed on themselves, if they had flags of it, if they had it on pieces of paper. I don't know what all they did with it. Okay, but they used it, and it's still around today. People don't know it, but it's here. Okay, so let's break this very last thing down here. Is the Star of Remphan actually the Star of David? Well, let's see. Some researchers, suggest that the Star of Remphan is the same hexagram or six-pointed star later known as the Star of David. Why? Well, there is no biblical or historical evidence that King David used a hexagram on anything of any kind for any reason. And he never claimed to have a Star of David. So it's not biblical. Okay? The six-pointed star only became a symbol of Judaism in the Middle Ages, not during the Old Testament times. So sometime in the Middle Ages, somebody shows up with a star, Star of Remphan, and claims it's the Star of David, and they start using the star again. So, if you start putting the star on stuff and claiming it's representing your God, and come to find out it's the Star of Remphan and it represents Saturn, which represents Satan, I guess I would have to ask, who is your God? Why do you have it on there if it doesn't really mean that? Maybe you don't know. Okay, whatever. Anyway, so the association of a hexagram, however, has been documented to have to do with paganism, alchemy, and the occult. And it's been historically documented as representing all that stuff. Okay, it's kind of like anything else, any other occult image, like a pentagram. Okay, you've got a pentagram, and we all know what it stands for. It's been an occult symbol with the devil horns and the whole thing in it this whole time. And then you start wearing a pentagram on your shirt and claim it means something else. Okay, well, it's known to mean something with the occult. Same as this hexagram. It also has paganism behind it. We know what it is. It's the Star of Remphan. Okay, it's just one of the many other things. So, okay, I think I'm going to wrap this one up. But what it boils down to, and a friend of mine said this to me the other day on the phone. He said, according to you, Kenny, everything is Satan. Yes. In this world that we live in, everything is controlled by Satan. We know it. As if you're a Bible believer, you already know it. Okay? Satan is not in hell like some people try to claim. He's not in a party in hell. He is roaming around on the earth. He's going to and fro here in heaven, and he's talking to God. And you can see what he says in Job. Okay? He's roaming around. He's doing whatever he wants to do. And that's just a fact of the matter. Now, eventually, he will be cast out of heaven, never to return. But he hasn't got here yet. He's going to and fro. He's doing what he wants to do. He's the God. He is the God of this earth. You know, he offered Jesus everything in the earth, anything that he wanted. And, you know, Jesus never said, hey, you don't own any of this stuff. You can't offer me this stuff. You don't own it. No, he didn't, because he does own it. Satan's in control of it right now. And that's why we have the system we have. That's why we have, you know, thousands, it's like hundreds of thousands of kids disappearing off the face of the earth, okay, every year. Nobody knows where they're going. They completely 100% disappear. Now, how is that possible? How is that possible? Well, you know, maybe, I don't know. Okay, back again. I don't know if this thing's glitching. I don't know what it looks like it's glitching, but what it boils down to is this time the phone was ringing off the hook, and I'm expecting somebody over here to look at something, so I had to answer it. So I have to pause this thing and then restart it. And I'm not real familiar with this particular video deal. It's new. I'm trying it out. I think it's great, but you know, at least I can pause it and restart it. But I don't know how it's going to look in the finished process. And I don't really have video editing software per se. So I try to just record this thing the best I can, and kind of what you see is what you get. I mean, and I don't have a lot of time. You know, I mean, I hear this from other guys on here. Like, one of the ones I watch is King James Video Ministries. He's always talking about he doesn't have enough time to do this, or this. And he's full-time pastor. I mean, he does this full-time. And he doesn't have time to do this stuff. Well, I have a full-time job. Okay? I actually work for a living and try to do this stuff. And trying to learn different software and get this stuff done, it just takes a lot. It really does. So, there are some errors and there's some glitches, and I apologize for that. But I want to let you know before I get off here, I'm done. I'm going to stop talking. You know, I have switched over to Spotify as my hosting deal. I used to host on another deal. It cost money. I do this all out of my own pocket. Everything's free. Everything is no advertisements. I personally hate advertisements. And so I try to do everything with no advertisements, all the above, all for free. And I pay for it myself. Okay, now I do have a couple of people who donate a little bit on Patreon. And when I say a little bit, you know, I mean, it's like $6 or $7 a month. So, you know, this software that I'm on right here by itself is $40 a month to be able to have it to interview people with unlimited access. So that plus 2 websites hosting fees, plus the podcast hosting fees. That's why I got rid of it and went to Spotify, because Spotify is free hosting fees. Having said that, if you're listening on Spotify, please rate the podcast. You know, click the star. Even if you don't like the podcast and you think, oh, this is horrible. Even if you put a 1 on there, it would help. It helps, you know, get the podcast in the algorithm, or the next person that comes along, if they type something in related, at least it's there. So if you like the podcast, please rate it if you want to, you know. And you can even type a little message on there that says, hey, here's what I like, or here's what I don't like. And the other thing is on Spotify, you can comment on anything you want. And those comments, everybody can see those comments, including myself. So please comment. If you have any questions, or if you just want to comment something, comment it. And what I'm trying to start doing now, I've never done it once, is I take all the new comments and I print them all off, and then I come on here and I'm going to answer all of those comments. Okay, now the first one was audio only. Eventually, I'm going to get it where it's video, and I'm going to have some slides up to help answer questions. And, some people are, they're just saying, hey, I don't believe a word you're saying. I think you're an idiot. I understand. Hey, not everybody's going to agree with everything I say. I understand that. I do want you to know, I do try to run everything through the Bible as a filter. Okay, so, that's just what I do. I mean, I'm trying to make it legitimately, biblically correct. I mean, that's what we're doing here. I'm not trying to make this stuff up. So, but leave a message, leave a comment. I'd love to talk about it. Please rate the podcast. That will help with algorithms, so somebody else will find it. And if, you don't have to do this, if you want to donate anything, I've got a deal on there where you can donate a little bit, like $1, $2, whatever, on Patreon. And I have one, it's supposed to be working on Spotify. However, somebody tried it and it declined their card. It's not working right at the moment. So I have a tech support deal on there because I tried it myself and it won't work for me either. So I don't know when that's going to be working, but I do have Patreon too. But if I ever get this thing working on Spotify, I'm going to try to do some extra stuff for people that have subscribed. It's called subscribers. So anyway, if you're interested, check it out. If you feel like donating anything at all, great. If you don't, that's fine. It's still free. I'm going to do this as long as I possibly can for free, which hopefully will be a long time, or until the Lord returns, which that could be sooner than later. I don't know. Could be a couple of years, could be 10 years. I don't know. But we're looking for that blessed hope. So, and that's another reason, I chose Spotify, is because it stays hosting for free. So if something was to happen to me, and I quit paying the bill over at the other place, all the podcasts disappear. They're gone. Within 90 days, they erase them all. So at least right now with Spotify, if I was to get killed tomorrow in a car crash, for example, and people just, throw all my stuff in the trash, well, this thing, all these podcasts will still be on Spotify available. I mean, for how long, I don't know, but it's supposed to be, so that's what the goal is, to keep it up there and keep it free so people can find it and listen and maybe come to the truth. Anyway, I sure hope this podcast helped you. Thanks for listening. Like I said, please go rate it, share it, whatever you want to do, and let me know what you think. So, thanks for listening, and God bless you.